Welcome, welcome, welcome back, you guys, to episode number 4. We are spiritually kinky, and I have got a great episode for you tonight. I know it may seem like this is just the next episode, but there has been a lot of time that has transpired between the recordings of the first 4 episodes, the first 3 episodes, and the setup, because we've been working on getting a podcast studio. But I also wanted to just keep this really raw and really real with you, because it's really not about the presentation, whether I'm sitting here in a studio, whether I'm sitting here in my living room with my, yes, we like certain things in marketing, but the truth is that you're most likely listening to this on audio. The presentation doesn't really matter at the moment. And, you just have to start with where you are with what you have. And so I just want to be honest with you guys. It's scary when you first start. And this isn't my first start, but this is definitely a level up for me. And what we're going to talk about in this episode of Spiritually Kinky, which I'm going to answer a question off the bat, because I know a lot of people, as soon as I say spiritually kinky, they have an image of what that means to them. And then they ask me, what does it mean? I say it's creating the road to being fully seen, deeply felt, and wildly free. And that's what this is. That's what this is for me. And hopefully that's what this is for you. And we're helping you do that by helping you build your vision, your value, and finding your true voice. And so these 11 episodes, as I mentioned in the first couple episodes, are the foundations, right? They are the foundations. And number 4, this episode is really special because since there's been a time since the first recording onto people, and this has come up a lot, a lot in conversations, and it's trust. And so this episode is all about building trust in a disconnected world, right? How do we restore trust first with ourselves and then with others in a world where there's a lot of communication and we have a lot of protective personas? So my intention for this with you today is to explore how we can reconnect with ourselves and each other by rebuilding trust on a foundation of self awareness, communication, and shared values. Well, that sounds pretty good, right? But how do we do that? And I think the first thing that we have to own, and you will hear me go back to this, because if you skip this step, you are creating in the problem structure. And the truth is, babe, is that you are creative force energy. You are creative force energy. You are whole masculine energy and whole feminine energy inside within, and you are a creative, loving force. That is who you are. And the only problem that you are not broken. The only problem you have is that you have just forgotten who you are. And it's not a problem, it's part of the superhero conscious journey. And you're right where you need to be. And this is just your remembering. So, at Spiritually Kinky, we aren't here to save you. We're here to unleash you, because the truth is that you are a super conscious creator. You are creating no matter what. You are either unconsciously creating or you are consciously creating. And the point of this is to help to teach you to consciously create. Now, I truly believe that when you embody fully the energy and the human, that you don't have to try. You just get to be in your energy and you get to create what you choose to create. And if you've had those magnetic moments and those magical moments of presence, it's what life is. That's the good stuff, right? And we choose. Now, everything that I'm teaching here is to help just give us different definitions that we can level up to communicate with ourselves and each other. Because after having more than 35,000 conversations with people, what I have realized is that most people have not defined their definitions, and they're words that they don't really understand. And so this is also a vocabulary on how you can build certain value in your life until you learn to embody the creative force within. Because it's not just as easy as sitting and law of attractioning this shit. It's not. There is a shift, and you make the shift from being the oldest version of your past self into the youngest version of your future self. And when you make that shift, all the resistance comes up. So what does that have to do with trust? Babe, you aren't going to know how. You aren't going to know how. When you make that shift, you aren't going to know how. And it's the unknown and it's scary. And that's okay. But when you learn to build trust, right, you can take that step in trust. And my whole story, if you have the origin story, please go back to the origin story and listen to that, because Ariel taught me how to build trust in so many ways, in so many ways. And I know how scary it can be. I know how scary it could be. She helped me do things like I would go to the park and I would want to lock my door, and she would tell me not to lock my door and leave my purse in there that had all the money in the world in it and in my wallet, and she would tell me to leave my door open. Not my door, but my door unlocked at this park that was so beautiful that I went and walked in every day, and she just told me to have faith. And so I would walk away from the car and I would be like, ugh. Like, and I would be thinking about it, like, what, like, oh my god, what if somebody takes my purse, blah blah blah. But I would walk away and I would follow my feet and trust that when I came back to the car it was going to be there. And but the resistance came up, right? And so the reason I'm bringing that up is because it's not a practice that I see that is being practiced by a lot of people right now. And I hear a lot of people saying that they need this kind of education. So we're going to kind of bridge like what trust really is and how we specifically build it. I'm going to kind of teach you what I used. And again, this is not the only way, but this is the way that has been magical for me. And I have learned from freaking masters, just master creators. And this is what they taught me. So, and this is what they taught me with my spiritually kinky side to it, because we get to choose, right? And I love the saucy flavors. I am a sauce girl. I love the saucy flavors. And I want to choose adventure. I want to choose naughtiness. I want to choose sensuality. I want to choose surrender. I want to choose trust. I want to choose erotica. I want to choose orgasm. I want to choose all of those things that we're taught that we can't have now. And the truth is that we absolutely can have it now. And so one of the cool things about, if you want to check out my program, I give you an emotional vocabulary to start from, where you can learn how to start actually choosing these flavors, because a lot of the times when they're not defined, it can trip us up. And so if we start with a definition, these definitions may transform for you, but it's a solid place to start from. So that's why I'm recommending it. And then what does true intimacy look like in a world that's starving for connection but terrified of being seen? What does true intimacy look like? For me, the most intimate thing that you can do is allow yourself to be seen. And when you're seen, you know it. You know it. You absolutely know it. Um, and that's such a magical feeling, whether that's fully seen by your partner, whether that's fully seen in your light, whether that's fully seen in your value, whether that's fully seen in your spirit, like allowing yourself to be fully seen. And as humans, we're hiding a lot behind a lot of masks. And so for me, intimacy is that presence, because when you allow yourself to be in the present moment and you're there with somebody else that's in the present moment, it's the most magical thing. It's why we're here, right? It's what we're here to enjoy. And there's magic in the moments. I don't know else to explain it, but there really is. And so that presence is the most intimate thing that I do with people. It's yeah, it really is. And there's not a whole lot of people, in my opinion, today that are really bringing their presence to things. So that's another reason why I'm here, why I decided to do this is because after having more than 35,000 conversations with people, like I understand now that all parts just want to be seen. So whether it's been a mental patient, a homeless person, a millionaire, anybody in between, a worker, a leader, all the parts just want to be seen. But again, it's also something that they're totally terrified of. Not everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people, right? And if you're a creator and you're shining your light, chances are, you may come across this podcast just because you may have been one of my amazing teachers and somebody tagged you in it and I said thank you for something, because I'm going to be thanking a lot of leaders that have really allowed themselves to be fully seen in this life, and it's because of them being fully seen that I am here, because I truly believe that if they hadn't been a light in the darkness, that I wouldn't be here. And I just am so grateful for that. And in my gratitude, I'm willing to step up and be fully seen. That's what this is about, right? Um, but it takes trust. And I don't think that we've taught how to create trust very well. At least not mainstream. But one thing I did find, and I want to credit Brené Brown, I don't think she did it, but I want to make sure she gets credit for it, is her bridge of braving. Because I truly look at trust like a bridge, right? We have to lay these stones. And what are those stones? Those stones are our actions, right? Because we don't build trust with people when we say things. We build trust with people when we behave in certain ways, when we act in certain ways. Now, listen, if you're somebody who's creating from wounded feminine or wounded masculine, there's a lot of things to this. And let me help you unpack it a little bit, which I may not be able to do in this whole podcast. But um, coming from that really deep, I created a lot of the narcissistic relationships because they were safety. And so when we move forward in this shift, and we practice trust in the body, we practice trust. Um, okay, I went on a little tangent there. Let me get back to Brene Brown. But she created this bridge of, it's called braving. And I don't know, I think somebody else had created it, but I'm going to credit her because it's just absolutely beautiful. And I heard it on her podcast. So, what does braving stand for? Well, braving stands for, and I look at this like a bridge building, right? It's that stone by stone. And that's where I was kind of headed, is that we do it by our actions, not words, because our actions are the loudest form of communication. And boy, don't I wish I would have listened to that in my 20s. Now, here's the thing is, when we are not standing on the stone that we are the primary creator in our lives and we get to consciously choose what it is that we want, we are caught in our old patterns of safety and security. And if you're coming from the wounded perspective, the not it perspective, right? It's I'm not enough, I'm not capable, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm not significant, I'm not perfect. Um, we all come from that perspective to learn how to not be it, because we had to learn how to stay safe and be human. Now, some of those instructions, most of those instructions, I think, were created from straight up survival mode. And they've proven that we can carry like 7 generations of pain and suffering contracts in our blood and bone. And to me, that's just really interesting. Chris said that he thinks, but, and these patterns can can look like all the labels that we have, right? All the things we call shadows, all of the darkness, whatever you we have a lot of labels. Um, but they were all created out of love from a child's perspective between the ages of 0 and 7. And these are called suffering family obligations of love, I believe. That's what they're called. And you can go and look more of that work by like Bert Hellinger. I'm not going to get into it too much, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you may be in a relationship where you are disappointed or frustrated that you cannot build trust with that person, but the truth is that you are with that person because you really don't want to build trust with them, because you really haven't built trust in yourself. And I know that that may land a little harshly, but everything that I talk about, you walk through first. It starts with self, babe. It starts with self. And it's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. But you can use these stones and these actions, because they're really actions, um, as stepping stones for the human as you learn how to embody the spirit. And the cool thing is that, in the Spiritually Kinky Academy, we have the goods to be able to get you results in an hour, where you can feel like you've saved 5 years, right? Because this is not more personal development BS. This is not another healing modality that's going to leave you feeling empty. This is not personal development. This is creative development. And it stands on the stone that you are the creative force energy, that you are the creator. And babe, you are. Science has proven it. Science has proven it. So the only problem that you have is that you're just remembering who you are, right? And if you choose to make this shift, the resistance is going to come up, but there's ways that we can do it effectively and gracefully, as easily as possible. But the resistance is going to come up, and there's going to be a holy shit, I don't know what to do. And your brain is going to be struggling to try and figure out how to do it. And you're not going to know how. So you're going to have to practice trust. Now, I'm getting a little off tangent, but this is really important to understand because it starts with self. And when I was really honest with myself when I left corporate America, and I realized I had not been living a life of any value. I hadn't. I was miserable. I was drinking. I was smoking. I was using all the things to try and cope. I was making a good paycheck, but I was using it to kill myself, in a lot of different ways. To me, that's not really living. And when I took responsibility for my life and I realized that um, I wasn't walking in any value, I didn't know who I was, and that's a humbling feeling. And it brought me to my knees. But the good news is that when I was down there, there's a few lights waiting for me, which was wonderful. But this is one of the lights that came through in the form of a podcast with Brené Brown, and it's braving. And so braving is boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. Now, let me break it down just a little bit to give you some real context behind it, because I love that Brené does that. And this is just such beautiful work, and helped me because let me tell you, when I was building this bridge with myself, I wasn't really showing up at all in any of those areas. So it wasn't a big surprise that I didn't trust myself, right? So I just started looking at these going, okay, well, what are my boundaries? Am I reliable? If the answer was no, I did this without, judgment. If the answer was like, no, I'm not reliable, then guess what? I started needing to take action for being reliable. And that's where, owning your yes and owning your no came in, is because if you say you're going to do something, right? Can people rely on you to show up? And most people, this is a no. Accountability, right? Can you own your mistakes and make amends? Listen, babe, there is no such thing as perfect, right? We let down expectations every day, right? People expect things of us every single day, and we always are going to let them down in some way. We're going to let somebody down. got opinions. And the truth is that instead of it being a wrong or right or a mistake, right? Can you just ask yourself if did you take that step in value, right? Did you the accountability is did you take that step in any value? And I know for me, sometimes I can say, "Wow, no, I did not. Nope. There was no intention, there was no value in the to embody your spirit, you just are these things, right? You just will flow this way because this is your natural essence. But in the beginning, it's you've got the path of least resistance to the problem structure in a knotted identity. So it takes some practice. Um, and it takes some yummy emotions, which is also cool because building trust with people is so yummy when they show up, man. When you can rely on somebody, when you know what somebody's boundaries are. And let me just tell you, boundaries were never meant to be blocks, right? They were never meant to be walls. They were meant to be bridges. So when you can build boundaries with somebody and understand where everybody is coming from, it's just this beautiful way that we can just connect in a way that just makes everybody feel good, right? I don't know. It just makes sense to me. Um, and then the V is vault. Do you keep confidences? Boy, in corporate America, did I struggle with that. Everybody was telling me stuff. Everybody was telling me stuff. It was hard. It was hard. Did I fall into it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because here's the thing is like the people that you spend the most time around, you'll become like. So if you work in a chatty catty office, guess what? You're probably going to be doing that too. Now, this isn't to judge you, right? It's like we kind of I don't want to say all of us because I'm not going to speak for everybody, but a lot of people that I've talked to, like this is where we're coming from, and we're not really taught value, right? So use these as stepping stones and ask yourself and be real, right? Take radical responsibility for your answers. Own your fucking yes, own your no, right? Give yourself permission. Things that we're going to talk about because this is all really important. And then when you decide that you are the super conscious creator that you already are, right? And you're just choosing to manifest in a way that actually builds a life that you love, then you get to decide what your flavor is. And if you haven't noticed, I think you know what my flavor is. So we're also going to talk yummy flavors through all this stuff too, because this stuff is supposed to be fun. And, when you can practice this with a partner, like the pleasure, like that's the prize. When you can practice this stuff with your partner, practice it with a partner in a way that is just the actions. It's not like having to talk about this, like you just naturally do it with each other. And so time and presence builds this bond. Like that's the prize. I don't know, it is to me. But integrity, are you choosing courage over comfort? Integrity is a big one. In corporate America, man, I just laid down integrity all the time. Every time I didn't speak up, every time my bosses just crap on me, tell me stuff, just all the stuff, and I loved my job. I elevated my job from like a secretary position to when I left in 3 years, I was a professional services consultant. That's why I know how to build what I'm building right now, is because my whole training in these corporate jobs that underestimated me, that were constantly telling me that I was the problem, I worked my way through these companies from like A to Z and learned I could on how every process worked because that's how my brain worked and I loved it. And I really elevated that job, but I was sacrificing who I really was and I wasn't on my path. Maybe I was on my path because it's been divine timing. So maybe I was just on my path and it just has been a longer path for me of, really embodying this. But there was a bunch of things that happened. Watch the origin story, but this is really where I started looking at these things so honestly in my life, and whether it was a relationship with my man or whether it was a relationship with a grocery store or a friend in my life, I just started asking myself, like, how can I show up in one of these areas? And I just started taking the actions. But I had to define what those actions look like for me. That's what a lot of people aren't doing. So as you go through this, what is an action of reliability for you? Because the other thing is we can have a partner where we are talking the same kind of meaning, but we're using two different labels. And so it gets real confusing sometimes. So this is just a good bridge to stand on. If you want to have that conversation with your partner to say, hey, what are those actions that you do when you're reliable? What do they look like? And it's going to get your partner or generosity. What do those actions look like? And then starting to practice more of those actions. Get it? So it's practice, it's awareness, practice, and repetition. You are not going to get anywhere if you're just like trying to law of attraction this shit in the problem structure, because the only result that the problem structure results in is an oscillating structure. So you have to stand on the premise that you're the primary creator in your life. You get to choose, right? This is when you make that shift and the step is unknown and you're working to create a life you love and all the resistance is coming up. These are like the little guideposts that can help you as you step into the embodiment of your true being. And this has just been an amazing journey for me. And I just didn't realize all the things I was building. I was asked to walk in trust, like blind trust, like, hey, guess what? You've got an angel now riding shotgun, and she's going to deliver messages all over to strangers all over town based on you seeing this little flicker of light in them. And you're just going to trust and you're going to do what she says and just trust. And so that was that was what I did. That was what I did. And so I understand that trust can be scary. But if you're in a relationship and this is where I think that there's opportunity, especially because there's so much wounded feminine energy out there and so much wounded masculine energy out there where, women are overgiving, people pleasing, overthinking, controlling, don't trust men, and men not claiming their masculine energy. We have to claim this in ourselves, right? And that's why we're also going to talk a lot about what those actions in masculine and feminine energy look like, because it's coming from that whole energy within. And so if you don't trust yourself, babe, you're not going to trust somebody else. It doesn't matter what face they have on, it doesn't matter what their name is. And you can bounce from relationship to relationship, but the truth is that when you don't embody who you really are and you're walking from the not it perspective and the not it identity, you're going to create the structure of just going back and forth of, I need to heal myself, fix myself, prove myself, all of that. And you will get right to where you almost have it. And then your identity won't let you have it. Your unconscious won't let you have it because it's out of the realm of that identity, and the identity believes that it has to die. And I'm here to tell you that your identity doesn't have to die. It needs to be redesigned, and we can do this in minutes, right? It doesn't have to take years of therapy on a couch, but you have to be willing to trust. You have to be willing to trust, because being willing to let go of your past takes a whole lot of trust. Making that shift from the comfortable, from the safe, even if it looks like a poop sandwich. Sometimes, we hold on to those poop sandwiches because we're afraid. And that's the truth. It's just because we're afraid. We're afraid of stepping outside that safety, stepping outside that zone. But I'm telling you that you have nothing to fear. You have absolutely nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. What happens is that old structures, they have to go. And we usually get really afraid of that because things are changing and not everything we can take with us. You know, some old structures aren't meant to stay, right? You need to stop being the version of your oldest self, or the version of your past self that was never meant to be the final chapter, right? And you're given our final chapter energy, and you're not done yet. So but willing to let go. And we're going to talk about how to build these values, and I've got definitions for each one of these because it was really helpful for me to have these definitions, because coming from a place where I didn't know what trust looked like, peeps. Like, there are very, 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 very few people in my life that I actually would say that I trust. And it has taken consistent, steady action of showing up to build that trust. But there's very few. And that's, to me, like, I know though who those people I trust are, right? I also wholeheartedly trust myself. It took me a while. It took me a while to build that trust back up in myself. Because, like I said, when I started, I was numb. I was coming off a lot of medication. I was coming off a lot of coping. I was coming off a lot of drugs, addiction, all of it. Right. And I just decided that I was going to change my identity. Um, I mean, the one decision that I did make was that I just decided I was going to no longer identify as a smoker. And who knew that, the alcohol would go away, the drugs would go away, the medication would go away, because I actually didn't even have to try and quit that, which was awesome. I just changed the identity. And so, the other thing I want to remind you is that, if you're looking at having to change a lot of mountains, like you're looking at everything and it just looks like mountains, like, you don't need to move mountains, babe. You just need to take a step. And that's the truth. And I promise you, when you get connected to who you really are, and I teach you how to actually listen to the right voice and find your voice, you're going to know what to do. I promise you, you're going to know what to do. And through the process, it's just a practice of using your conscious choice, your focus, and your flow to redesign your nervous system and your unconscious set points so that your conscious and your system will allow you to have the life that you desire. Because otherwise, you will continue to go through life thinking that there's something that you can do, be, or have that's going to finally allow you to feel what you want to feel once you have that thing. And that's just not true. Like, you can feel it now. So a big key to all of this, and a big key to trusting and creating the life you love and creating from two choices, is getting into the end result emotion. And that's where Spiritually Kinky came from, because, man, there is nothing better in my life than saucy emotions. I love them. I actually call them luck emotions, and I've got definitions for all of them. And if you know, you know. If you've been pleasure to my vocabulary, you know that these definitions are fire, because they confront something that you immediately have a bad reaction to. And I'll give you an example. So I gave these cards to a friend who I knew was, like, sort of religious and was going through, letting go of some addictions in his life and everything. And he started reading the Bible. And so I knew what reaction he was going to have to these, but I also know him. So I gave him these cards and I asked him to pick an emotion from it. And this is the luck suit. And I knew the first one he picked was orgasm. And he's like, well, obviously I can't pick this one. And I'm like, it's the one that I know you want to pick, but you're telling yourself you can't pick it. And I was like, don't you want to read the definition first? Because we just automatically assume it's bad or that we can't have it. And I want to remind you guys, is literally, we rode in on the wave of an orgasm. You are allowed to create whatever you want to create in this life. And the truth is that, I used to think like we were creating Divergent, and I guess we still could. I hope I hope that we're getting more like 50 Shades of Grey, or at least I am, because that is a life I love. That is a life that I choose to live. Those are my true choices. Because the truth is that We get to choose. We can choose depression, anxiety. We can choose abuse. We can choose all the labels. We can choose all the stories. We can choose all the reasons. Like, we can choose. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with our choices. You get to choose. You're the primary creator in your life. You get to choose. It's just that most of what you're choosing right now is from your past, and you can actually learn how to create from your future. Create from your future, again, you're making that shift, and once you create in a creative structure, what happens is it's like a rubber band. So instead of getting caught in the psychological emotions of your head, in your emotions trying to solve the problem of not being it, now you get to just choose to create a life you love, decide what that looks like for you, and start taking the inspired action in that correct structure, because that flowing structure is actually going to pull you into your desired result. And it's like magnetic. So, one thing that I've been noticing, especially in the last like week and a half, I mean, we have expanded time so much. This last week and a half feels like it's been a year. Like, we just my marketing partner and I are just unbelievable. And we just created so much time and just got so much done, and it so much created. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. There were a few days of rest, really good rest in there, because, we both have a fire in us. But we complement each other in a lot of ways. And so I just want to give him a big shout out too, because I totally hijacked his sales call. His name is Micah, by the way. And he owns Dive First Marketing. Um, Head First. Yeah, he owns Head First Marketing. But he has quickly become a valuable member of Spiritually Kinky, and we are partnering together to create the Spiritually Kinky Entrepreneur package for people, which is awesome. It's going to be freaking awesome. It's going to be so good. But he has been giving me feedback of what his journey has been like, because I totally hijacked a sales call. And I was like, hey, Micah. So after I tell him the story, because this is how I started the sales call, is I'm like, so let me just lay out the story for you, and then you tell me what I can do with it. And he's like, okay. So I tell him the whole story, tell him the origin story, just like I'm telling you. And then I'm like, okay, so what do you say, Micah? Like, do you want to go save the world, or not save the world? Do you want to go change world? And he's like, let's go. And I was like, and then we were just partners. We were just stacking it up and just taking inspired action and creating, and it just was awesome. And we've been like the last week and a half, it's been beautiful. There's always tech issues and like different stuff like that, but I just wanted to give him a big shout out too, because this is an opportunity for me as well, who doesn't have a whole lot of people to practice trust with. This braving bridge has been great, and Micah has been absolutely amazing in helping me build this bridge with him. And as in business, just by his actions, really showing up, right? Really showing up. And what was amazing is, now I just know what my actions are in those. And so if I want to build trust with somebody, right, I show up in a way in those actions towards that person. And Micah was totally reflecting those actions back, right? It was the boundaries, it was the reliability, it was the accountability. And so, as we're practicing this trust together too, it's not by his words that I'm basing any of this trust on, it's by his actions. And that's how I build my relationships with people. And the really great thing is that if you feel like, oh no, Dustin, I'm really there, like I'm ready to receive, learning how to build trust with somebody, because that's where I'm at. Like, I'm ready to receive how to build trust with people, right? I've manifested a friend back in my life that I've known since I was 16 years old, building trust with him. Micah in marketing, building trust with him. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing, with a couple of new friends, building trust with them in whole new ways that I never had before, because I was either never surrounded myself with people that actually just showed up in that action, because I was very much creating from wound and not allowing myself to be seen. Um, I've also practiced and embodied what those actions are in me, and that's how I show up for people, right? That's how I show up for people. It's my natural way now. So I don't have to force it. I don't have to think about it. It's just what I embodied. And so, again, it may seem a little tedious at first, but it's so helpful in having a conversation with your where you guys may just be miscommunicating and speaking different language, but you really want to like love each other and touch each other and be there for each other, and you both want to heal and you want to create together, but you just don't know how. Like, this is definitely something that you can use as a bridge, and it's a beautiful bridge. Because the other thing is that you can use these different steps with touch as well. And there's a beautiful thing to trust is that, force and submission, those are easy. Like, it's not hard to try and force somebody to do something. It's not hard to be gruff. It's not hard to be forceful or fast or not listening or reactive, or like, it's not hard. Like, that's easy, right? It's a reaction. But the truth is that there is a form to surrendering. Surrender is beautiful. Because what would happen if you just surrender to life, right? If you just decided that you were going to choose a life that you love and you were just going to surrender to it, and you were going to take the next inspired action based on the voice from here in your heart and not in your head, and you were going to take the next inspired action and you were going to trust. And when you surrender, and especially when you surrender to somebody else like that, whew, I don't know that I've ever surrendered to somebody like that before. I've been very protective, and if you guys don't know, I grew up with a lot of you know trauma around abuse and SA at a very young age, um, and so there just is a whole lot. There was a whole lot to that, but um, because of that, I've had a lot of protective layers. Had a lot of protective layers, like had a lot of parts that absolutely love sex, love being sensual, love being erotic, loved all that stuff. But on the other part of it, the other part that was like totally bad, full of shame, guilt, like all that stuff. And so that was always constantly in conflict, um, for me. So I haven't had a whole lot of people to practice trust with, but they're starting to flow in, which I absolutely love, because it's just a practice of co-creating with each other in a new way. And when you recognize and realize that you're the creator in your life and you get to create, then you get to have fun creating with other people that are like, hey, what do you want to create? And you just create it. And it's actually, life is pretty fun and life is pretty magnetic. So I want to impart that to you, and hopefully all of this made sense. Again, this is just the raw and the real of the first 11 episodes, because again, it was just more important for me to just do these raw, do these real, and get this conscious education out to you, before anything else. And then we're going to get into all the saucy conversation after, right? You're not going to believe what I have in store for you. And since we are on episode 4, and this is not launched live yet. By the time that you hear this, it will be live, and boop, like just collapse time right there. But we are also going to be starting a side little audio pleasure delight for you, because who knew that I was such an audio person at the beginning of this journey? But I love audio. I love it. So we're doing a little side piece called I Don't Need a Book Boyfriend, I Need an Audio King. And just to give you a little preview of what that's going to look like, is I have a very saucy site that has these saucy, spicy audio clips on it. And whoever is brave enough to join, Micah volunteered, first volunteer. He's going all in on this with all my firsts. So he is going to listen to one that I pick out first, and then we're going to come on and we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to give you guys the link. You can go check out the audio file for yourself. And let me tell you, these audios are so good. I listen to them when I'm at the gym running, and I started running 5 miles a day. I could very easily up that to like 7 or 10 if I played it twice, or if I played like 2 or 3 in a row. I could easily run 10 miles a day. I'm just telling you, they're that good. And I just cover up the time and I just listen. And there are some parts that get on there where I literally, like, when I hit a specific audio resonance, I don't know, in my ears, like my knees go weak. And I've almost fallen off the arc trainer several times. So God knows what everybody is thinking, like with a big smile on my face and falling off the elliptical or the arc trainer. But anyway, that is going to be a really fun show. So I am trying to get the couple who started my Book Boyfriend podcast on that show too. And if you haven't checked them out, make sure you check them out because they are an amazing couple. If you have not gone down the rabbit hole of book talk, Godspeed, my friend, because that's what started this whole thing. And I just didn't know there was such a world out there. So their podcast is a great place to start. He hasn't read the books, she has, and their banter is freaking priceless. So until next time, my friends, this is Dustin with Spiritually Kinky. Stay tuned for episode 5. Hold on, let me see what we're going to be discussing because I have these all laid out here. All right, so Sacred 5, ooh, we're getting into the good stuff, is going to be the sacred art of touch, sensuality, safety, and surrender. So if you haven't yet, make sure you like, make sure you describe, make sure you describe, make sure you subscribe, and make sure that you go to Spiritually Kinky on all social media channels. Give us some love. Give us some reviews. I can't tell you how much that helps us out, especially since we are growing new accounts across all boards. So we love you, and yeah, until next episode, my friends.